All right, here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tour for Diversity, SNMA, and the Latinx Student Medical Association and Black Psychiatry. I'm the content creator and creator behind that. And I'm also Dr. Danielle Hairston. I'm a doc named Danny on the socials. I am the residency training director at the Howard University in Washington, D.C. And we are glad that you are here for yet another Road to Residency, the Psychiatry edition. We always have the most views and the most participants, so I'm glad y'all are here and we want to keep that same energy for 2022. So I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves just in the order that I see them on my screen, and then I will introduce you all to our wonderful student panelists, my students at Howard. And the format will be, we have some moderated questions that our students are going to ask. Around the last 15 minutes will allow you to either come off mute or drop some of your questions in the chat, and make sure you ask anything that you need to know before you're entering this whole ERAS interview, virtual open house, all the things happening for this interview season. We are here to support you, and we are going to get started. All right, so first we are going to introduce Dr. Igboeli. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Dr. Hairston, thanks for having me on. I'm Blessing Igboeli. I'm one of the associate program directors for the Ohio State University Psychiatry Residency Program in Columbus, Ohio. So I'm happy to be here.
We're happy you are here. Dr. Ashley Walker.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Walker. I'm the residency training director at University of Oklahoma School of Community Medicine in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. We also have Frank Clark, Dr. Frank Clark.
Thank you, Dr. Hairston. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Dr. Frank Clark. I am affiliated with Prisma Health, Greer Psychiatry Program in Greer, South Carolina, and I also serve as clinical associate professor for the University of South Carolina School of Medicine in Greenville. Happy to be here.
And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Cabrina Campbell.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cabrina Campbell, and I'm the program director at the University of Pennsylvania. And I'm also the vice chair of education for Penn Psychiatry. And welcome. You're among friends. So I would take a deep breath and relax as we get to it.
Yes, as Dr. Campbell said, we're about to get into it. So let me just also introduce our wonderful student moderators for the night. My very own students at Howard University. We have student Dr. Ingham and student Dr. Jonathan. So y'all are there. Do you have anything to say? Are you ready to get your questions going? We're ready? Let's go. Is that what y'all said?
Yes, let's do it. Thanks everyone for joining. So the first question we'll ask, and any of the panelists feel free to jump in. What are ways that underrepresented students have stood out in the application or in their interview? Anything notable or anything really stand out to you?
I can take that one or start off. Full disclosure, I am not a program director, but I'm on the admissions committee for our residency program, so I read a lot of applications. One of the things that I have noted over the years in doing this is that a lot of the students, URM students, I really enjoy their personal statements. That stands out to me. I'm a firm believer that it's important to take a holistic approach to when we are reviewing applications. And so you can have, decent board scores, but I want to get to know you when I'm reading the application. The board scores just tell me that, sure, you can pass an exam and that's fine. We want you to be, come board certified and do well on the PRIDE exams, which is that in-service exam that you're going to take throughout your 4 years of residency training. But beyond that, who are you as a person? And so when I'm reading the application, I feel that things that allow me to say, hey, I want to meet this person, it's not their board scores, it's the personal statement. And then I would also say this letters of recommendation. I think my colleagues would probably agree. We read generic letters, we read mediocre letters, and then we read letters that are just superb. And you don't want to be in that mediocre pile. You want to be in that superb, excellent status. So
I'll say that I agree with Dr. Clark. For my program specifically at Howard, if there is nothing in your personal statement about serving the underserved, marginalized, historically neglected, helping the most vulnerable patients that there are, Black patients, Latinx patients, or being a URM in medicine, you're not going to be getting an interview at Howard. That's just how it is, because we have a very specific program, we have a very specific mission, and you have to be driven in a specific way, and you have to be able to survive here and continue, like when things aren't going perfectly, when you don't get an iPad on the first day, when you need to be resourceful, when you have to finesse your way with social workers, and you have to work to run to Walgreens and get things done. I have to know that this is something that you care about and that's your passion. So I'm looking for that in your personal statement. So a lot of times people say, Howard takes so long to send out invitations. They do, because it's me and I'm reading them. I'm really reading them. I don't do the step score filter. My filter is really reading your personal statements, and I have a team that helps me go through, and that's what I'm looking for. And that's how you all can stand out for my program and other programs that have the same mission.
So I would echo what has been said already. I also look for leadership in SNMA and LMSA and community work. I do take a look at, how people do on their rotations, particularly in psychiatry and internal medicine. I agree about the personal statement that, there needs to be a paragraph in there where, as a medical student, you compassionately cared for someone with mental health problems. In terms of letters of recommendation, it's really important to pick someone who knows you well and someone who writes great letters of recommendation. And if it seems like they are not able to write great letters of recommendation, and you really want them to, it's totally fine to supply them with some details about you that they can utilize in the letters of recommendation. I find that the letters of recommendation, if on a scale of 1 to 5, they're typically all kind of 4, but if they are exceptional, then they are 5.
I would echo all of what has been said here. I think the personal statement is probably where I'm going to see people stand out the most compared to everyone else. And what I'm looking for, which I think is what Dr. Hairston said, is somebody who demonstrates that they're going to fit our mission. And so that mission might be really different depending on which program you're applying to. So just consider that, obviously, for example, my mission at our program is to train people that are going to practice out in the community, preferably our community around Oklahoma and this area of the country, but really just out in the community, right? It's not the same as at other institutions necessarily. And in terms of one other thing to add to what everyone else said, in your kind of extracurricular activities, I want to see not just a lot of things, but that you've kind of dived deep into something and kind of had some meaningful experiences, longitudinal experiences in one or more things.
And Kim, you got a question for us?
Thank you, everyone. So our next question: what portion of URMs apply versus are accepted into your respective residency programs?
I can start. First, before even answering that question, we do have a 36% underrepresented in medicine in our department in Penn Psychiatry. 25% are Black, 11% Latinx, 19% AAPI, and we actually have 45% Caucasian. So we are a majority minority program. We interview about 1 out of 5 Black applicants who apply. And you were saying how many apply and how many are accepted. So we had we currently had 4 African American students who were accepted this past year. And we had 109 who applied, and we had 80 some odd Latinx students apply, and we have 1 Latinx student in our program this year, the first year. So we have a 12 students in our intern class.
Thank you. And to expand upon that, maybe how many URMs are ranked to match? So I know the classes are very small compared to the number of people that apply. So maybe even to expand in that regard as well.
That is a great question. What I guess my chair has always told me not to reveal what number we go down to, but because that gets into a little bit of the answer in terms of rank to match. We don't go down very far. But I can tell you that our #1 applicant this year was a half Black, half Latinx male resident. And we, having 4 African American residents in our first year class and 1 Latinx, we were very, very proud of. And we don't go down very far in order to accomplish that. So let me just say in general, typically, schools will look at, do you go like 3 cycles to fill your class? We definitely have more people who are Black in terms of who applies and who gets an interview. The percentages on that, like I said, are 1 in 5. And we do have a number of UIM applicants in our top third on our list.
Anybody else answering?
I thought you were going to go, Dr. Hairston.
Oh, I can. Yes, so I'm at Howard University, which is a HBCU. And when I came into being the program director, it was not a majority URM program, but the first year I was program director, about 83%, last year 88%, and this year my program is 100% URM.
Oh,
yes.
I can say that we are really trying here in Oklahoma to attract more URIM applicants and residents to all of our programs. Most all of our programs, especially mine in psychiatry, did better this year than the previous year. So our stats are that of our total applications, 19% were URIM this year. We interviewed, the 32% of the ones interviewed were URIM. 24% of those, let's see, 24% URIM interviewed out of all URIM applicants. And then we matched 40% into our class of 5.
Yeah, and I'll chime in for our program. So we have just consistently grown over the last few years. Our current intern class is about 15 residents. And so out of the 15, we have about like almost 20% URM. And that has consistently grown over the course of the years. We usually kind of echo what Dr. Campbell was saying, like we usually do well in the match, and our applicants are diverse in where they fall in the match. And so, but yeah.
I don't have the official numbers, but our program in Greer is a fairly new program. So we finally have our 3rd class. So we have 8 residents per class, and we have not gotten up to for full classes. So I know in our current PGY2 class, we had, let's see, out of 8, about 25% of the residents would be considered URIM. So we are trying to make headway. I've been very intentional about working with my colleague and friend who is our program director, Dr. Anu Nagar, of finding ways that we can not only increase our recruitment, but then also making sure that we are retaining our URIMs once they are graduating. So.
Thank you. I think that leads in perfectly to the question. You know, we've talked a lot about growth in terms of change in representation of applicants and, you know, admits. In what ways has your program grown? You know, in any capacity, what ways has your program grown to really support and retain URIM students?
I can start off. And so I know that we have been really intentional about our just approach to URM students, whether they're in our medical school or regional or national. And it's been like a determined intentionality, which I've really appreciated over the years. And that's been reflected in our consistently like growing numbers. So from like last year to this year, the numbers keep rising. And that's been a stark difference from, let's say, like 5 years ago. So you know, advertisement, the, you know, invitation from, you know, other schools to do rotations in our program and to check out what it looks like, you know, and just reaching out, mentorship, participating in just state and regional and national organizations.
So in the last 5 years, which is started being director of the program in 2017, we had about 5% UIM. And I said we now have 36%. And for the last 3 years, we've had over 30%. And I think that speaks volumes when you look at our website and you can see people like you. And I think that is really cool. But the point is really to retain our residents as faculty. We're really very, very interested in that. We've done several things in our program and at large. In our program, we have a community psychiatry certificate program, as well as a cultural psychiatry certificate program. And a number of students are interested in those. We have basically 9 certificate programs overall, but I can tell you that those two really, address some of the, like we're saying, marginalized patient populations. We, clearly we have a great didactic series, health equity symposiums, grand rounds that, pertain to diverse patient populations. And then I chaired actually a committee that was called Promoting Diversity and Anti-Racist Hiring, because we want to be very, very intentional about that. So the other thing is that my chair is actually meeting with all of our residents actually, and is very committed to continuing to diversify our program. We also have affinity groups, certainly for recruitment and interviewing in terms of UIM, AAPI, LGBTQ+, and we also have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, and have some great meetings with respect to that. Our larger school has the Alliance for Minority Physicians. And so that brings psychiatry together with all of the other departments in the school. Later this month, I'm actually attending a social event so we can welcome the new house staff. And then just this past weekend, we we had a Black medical student, house staff, and faculty cookout. That we, as program director, we routinely have a departmental party at my house to welcome folks. But it was kind of fun to just have a cookout for us.
I'll say that I have a little bit of a different perspective because I was a resident previously in the program that I'm now the program director of. So I was one of 3 Black residents at Howard at Howard, the HBCU at Howard, when I came in intern year. So the program has grown, as I explained. But I thought the question was about like, how have we grown? So I just wanted to say how, so when I came in as program director, I completely revamped the curriculum and what we focus on here. There were some rotations that were not very favorable in the residents' perspective, and also me as the program director and faculty. So I worked to change that, and we no longer rotate there. I also work to partner with different hospitals across the city and the region to have different places for my residents to rotate and still get the experience, but without some of the bias and just actually racism that they were experiencing. So I'm very proactive and serious about that. I mean, you do have to work, like you have to do your work, you have to come, you have to do call. But other than that, I try to protect my residents and really find different opportunities. So being who I am in the leadership roles that I have nationally, I'm able to get people to come in and teach, do grand rounds, usually for free, or I will exchange my services, like speaking somewhere. If you come and speak, then, so if I speak for Frank's program, I'll ask Frank to come speak in my program so that Dr. Clark, so that we can have a fuller experience for my residents and students. So making those connections and networking and trying to both mentor, but if I don't know, I don't know child, and I'm not going to. So reaching out to you so that I can make that connection. So that's the way that I've tried to help my program to grow and expand. I wish that I could say we've gotten more residents. I want to have more residency spots, but I do have a very small program. So we only take 4 or 5 per year. But we are expanding the residency opportunities, the rotation opportunities, who you get to work with, and research because of some of the grants that I have and other faculty members to get to really expand, like addiction services. I have a grant from Microsoft to do some AI and VR work. So whatever I get, I pass on to my students and residents, as my students on here can tell you, like whatever Dr. Hairston has, you're gonna have that opportunity as well. And that's how I work.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Clark.
Okay. So I was going to say, echo everything that's been said. I know at our program, I'm one of the very few underrepresented faculty, and so we have been very intentional about increasing not only recruitment at the resident level, but I think also if we're talking about retention, we have to look at recruitment at the faculty level, because if we're hoping to get residents and attracting them to our program, they have to see people that look like us. One of the things that I am happy about is that one of our current PGY2s, who is a Black female, has implemented a DEI seminar series for the residents that I will be serving as her mentor for. And so that's something that, again, the program director and associate program director are all on board with. The program director has actually implemented a panel discussion with some of the leaders in our organization to talk about how we can be more intentional about recruiting URIMs. I'm going to be on that panel. So it's a work in progress. And then what's been said about partnering and reaching out to those, doing like grand round series. I've done a grand rounds for our department on, for example, Black mental health, and which was well received. So we need more of those. But again, kind of a work in progress. Last thing I will say, because I think that this will hopefully trickle down. At the medical school that I'm involved with, we had the highest percentage of URIMs since its inception, and we're at 27%. Before that, we were less than that. So I think that's going to help as well at the medical school level, because then hopefully we can take those students who are interested in psychiatry and say, hey, we want you to stay here. And I think that will also help with our recruitment efforts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Walker, where are you gonna go? Sorry.
I can. I don't know if you had something to add to yours though.
I was just going to explain a little bit about our curriculum. As I've heard everyone mentioned. So one of the things that we implemented starting like about 2 years ago, and this was from our at that time like one Black female resident program, was a diversity book club that was done for all residents in the program, and that we've continued to expand upon. And the other thing that we instituted was what we call a Culture of Humility series. That's a year-long program that all the residents participate in. We've also started a dual diagnosis clinic for those who are underinsured, and we also have started a refugee clinic. Our residents also participate in free clinic, volunteer opportunities for the Latinx population, and just for people who don't have access to care. And then we have, actually we started first year, but we instituted just for the second and third year, where we'd go to community, we do community tours, just to strengthen the link and the relationship that we have. And so our residents have the opportunity to go to these other different community clinics and, interact with the staff and the patients and kind of see like what life looks like outside of, the bubble of the academic medical center.
I'll just add, since we are a very small department, and I'm sure there are other places like this as well, one of the things that we've had to do is really look at the institutional level to have a lot of more opportunities for social events and things of that nature. So our institution just a year and a half ago formed a minority house staff association to build some more of those relationships and provide more social events. As a white woman, I think what I try to do is talk very explicitly with all of our residents and applicants in terms of bringing up what we're doing in the DEI realm, being open and forthcoming about my own identities in ways that I hope the residents can feel like they can come to me if they have something relevant to their own identities that's relevant to their training as a psychiatrist. So I want to try to open that door as much as possible, knowing that I'm not going to be concordant on every identity with every person, but hopefully that folks understand that I want to create environments where people can bring their full selves to work. So I've also, we haven't done a book club, but I love book clubs, but I've been putting in to our department library every month for the last 2 years, a book of the month, a social justice and psychiatry book of the month, and really try to choose very diverse authors and topics and, to honor all different types of identities, not just our racial identities. So.
Thank you all so much. So our next question, it shifts gears a little bit, but basically students typically use these sub-internships to kind of audition for desired residency spots, but the pandemic has definitely limited some of those in-person opportunities. So how are programs giving students outside of your respective program the opportunity to shine when applying?
I was thinking about this earlier because I didn't have a good answer, but I think it really just goes back to what we said, I think maybe with the first question, that the personal statement is to me still the biggest piece where you're going to stand out and to get that interview, right? Because at that point, it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter quite as much, I think, as if you've done a sub-I or not, because then you're meeting and talking with the people. I don't know. I also just feel like it doesn't make a huge difference to me personally as program director and choosing, right? Because I look at every single application, I read all the applications that come in all the way through, right? I'm doing a holistic review and all of that. So I'm not like, I feel like whether you did a sub-I is less relevant maybe at that point. So I don't know what others think.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I don't think that a coming here and auditioning, I don't think psychiatry really does that a lot. Certainly we have students who come, we try to give them an interview. We can't necessarily give everybody an interview just because they came to do an away rotation. We do have our own UIM visiting clerkship, though, that we select 2 medical students a year who come to Penn and have a 4-week rotation, and we fully engage them with our faculty and residents and when they're here. I did put my email address in the chat for this group because I think that one of the things that I've really been challenged by the last 3 years is that there's so many applications that it's hard to distinguish the 100 that we interview from the top 200. And so I've gotten to the point where I literally say, if you really want to come to our program, contact one of our residents, email me, because by the time we make the interview, who's going to come for an interview, since they're virtual, there's no such thing as a waiting list anymore. I mean, most people do come for their interviews. So if you really are interested in coming to the University of Pennsylvania, I would recommend contacting me before we make our interview list. I think it's in the chat.
Yeah, if they join late, then they won't see it. So we'll try to do it again at the end too.
Okay.
So I guess I'm not old school at all or traditional in any way. But except for this, that if you do a visiting, I'm gonna give you an interview. Like that's just that's my style, because that's how I think that's just, I don't know, maybe it's a Howard thing, but if you come and interview, we are going to, if you come and do a AI or sub-I, I'm gonna interview you. And probably I'm gonna interview you because you probably are going to be in one of my classes on that sub-I or AI. So I'm going to see how you are working, or you're probably going to rotate on my service, or you should ask to rotate on my service. So yes, but it's not just because someone doesn't do one, that doesn't mean that they're not going to get an interview. So if you don't do one, that doesn't mean that you are not going to get an interview. I'm a person who focuses a lot on what I see, even on social media. Like if I happen to see that you're participating in something SNMA, which could be on your CV or resume as well. But if I see you as, I think Dr. Walker talked about earlier, like if we see that you're doing something that's psychiatry. So if I see that, if I see you agreeing to do a panel, if you talk about something or you're posting about something, I'll try to pay attention. Also, my residents, they don't play. So if they are saying, Dr. Hairston, you need to look at this person, then I'm going to look at this person, because they know what type of resident I'm looking for, and they know what you need to fit here at Howard, and they know what I am looking for. So if they say like, this person seems like they need to be in this program, or one of your mentors reaches out to me, that's another thing. If one of your mentors reaches out to me and says, you need to interview this person, then I'm going to interview them. So I think three of my current 4 interns who just came in, I already, either they rotated with me or their mentors reached out to me and told me to take a look at their application, or my residents said, we like this person, look at their application. So it's really about the fit, because residency is going to be hard, right? It's going to be hard. That's how it's going to go. So I want it to be a good fit for you, because if it's not a good fit for you, then that causes stress to me. So I want it to be a good fit for all of us, so that you know what you're walking into. And I can tell you, I can tell that someone is saying something about you. So networking is important, and seeing, like we talked about, looking on your resume, because you're saying you're interested in psychiatry, but the only thing I see on your resume is about radiology, and then I'm like, okay, are you? So.
I just wanted to add that we do interview our UIM students who do rotations here. So that's a guaranteed interview.
I just wanted
I
to,
would like to
go ahead.
add.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Dr. Clark.
No, you're good.
No, I was also going to add that attending the open houses, the programs that you're interested in, it's another way to get, in their face if you're not able to do an acting internship. So like networking, like like everyone has said, whether it's in the state organization, SNMA, the Psychiatry Student Interest Group, for us like OPPA or whatever else, where you can get in front of other program directors, other programs, it's going to be important.
Just to piggyback on the networking, that is huge. And the reason that I say that, be mindful. I mean, I think we're all adults here, but always be professional. It's a small world and people know one another. Dr. Walker and I were just talking before this panel started. We have a mutual colleague in Oklahoma. You never know who knows someone. So always put your best foot forward, because you never know. We text people and say, hey, I think you really should check this person out, or email. So always put your best foot forward. You never know who's watching you. And like I said, there's not that many psychiatrists in the country. And furthermore, there's not that many underrepresented psychiatrists. So just be mindful of that. I just wanted to stress that point, that sometimes, I mean, if you have a great application, that's one thing and that's important, but it always helps to have someone who's backing you and it can send an email, or you never know who's going to be advocating for you.
There were some questions in the chat about the signaling. Let me see. Okay, so how does your program plan to use signal preferences? What about signaling in psychiatry? If we signal any particular program, will we get an interview? And I think that just dovetails from the last question in terms of how a URIM applicant can shine. My understanding is that the signaling, there's 3 parts, and programs have to opt into it and applicants have to opt into it. And you cannot see, like me as the program, I cannot see if you've not opted in versus just haven't signal preferenced me at all. Okay, so then there's 3 parts. One is the activities, right? You're choosing your top 5. I see, I guess it's Bianca is nodding yes. Okay, good. Thank you, Bianca. Those activities, I think, go into the whole issue we said before about holistic, right? We're looking for people that fit our mission. So that's where you can shine. It's the same thing we said earlier. The second is your geographic preference, maybe it's second or third. Personally, as somebody in Oklahoma who is technically in the South, but like not the part of the South that like most people in the South are looking for, I don't really find that geography like super helpful for me. Like I'm in South, but like really we draw from all the states around Oklahoma, which is South and West and Midwest, right? So I don't think that the geographical one is necessarily going to be as helpful for me. Maybe for some of the other regions, it will be more helpful. And then the third one is your actual like 5 tokens or signals, which I think probably will be more helpful in signaling to your top 5 programs. And I do intend to use that at this stage of selecting for interviews. If I have people that are all kind of like otherwise the same, like fitting our mission and that sort of thing. And now I have like, 20 interview spots left for like 100 applicants that are all in that kind of bunch. That's where it's going to play a role for me.
So you see me leaning in because I don't know anything about this signaling. Obviously, I do not stay up on my program director listserv. So thank you, Dr. Walker, for explaining that.
Well, it's brand new this year, so I think we'll all be trying to figure out how we actually utilize that. So I don't know that I'm going to put a lot of stock into that this year. You know, we have a lot of geographic diversity in our program, so I think that's cool, and we like having people from different areas. I know that the Penn medical students have been instructed to not signal our program so that they have, you know, their 5 programs elsewhere, that they can just quote unquote tell me that they don't like our program. So I think there's a bit of gamesmanship, you know, that will, you know, happen in that, and I'm not sure how it will actually fall out. The one thing I did want to say though is that I think we accidentally checked supplemental applications. We don't need, actually, if anybody's wondering, you know, please, it's not necessary to do a supplement for our program. And then I think somebody in the chat was asking about, does it matter what status someone is for letters of recommendation? There's fewer and fewer programs that say we need a letter from your chair, because whenever you had a letter from the chair wasn't writing it anyway, because, you know, at most they had a meeting with you. So it was typically, you know, the director of the psychiatry clerkship who was writing it. So I'd absolutely recommend to pick someone who knows you well, far and away over, you know, what someone's status is. And when I write letters of recommendation, I look back at the student's evaluation, and I remember vividly patients we shared together. Those are good folks to get letters of recommendation from. And medicine is medicine as far as I'm concerned. If you want internal medicine, family medicine, typically those two, but I'm sure emergency medicine would be okay too. And can it be pediatrics? Sure. So, you know, 2 psychiatry letters and 1 medicine letter. Once I read 3 great letters, I don't read the 4th, 5th, 6th. So just have 3 great letters.
All right.
Speaking about sorry, if I can just jump in.
Yeah.
Speaking about the letter of recommendation, don't be afraid to ask your letter writer if they can write you a strong letter of recommendation. Like, you can use that language and say a strong one. Because I think a lot of times people think, you just assume that whoever you're asking is going to write you a strong letter, and then it ends up being a generic letter. So ensure that they can write you a strong one. And if they can't, that's okay. Like, there's no hard feelings, but, you know, make sure that you make that known.
Okay, thank you everyone for your answers. Now is definitely a good time to look to the chat, and if anyone in the audience has any questions they want to ask, please submit it. I know we've been covering some of them, but I'll go ahead and ask one of the first questions that was asked in the chat. It goes, a lot of times as URMs, we fall into, we feel we have to oversell elements of our struggle. Racial trauma in the US, immigrating here, or even the prejudice we've experienced. How do we tell our story authentically without pandering or without feeding into it too much? How do we know too much? How do we know if too much is, you get what I'm saying? With the tail end of that. Yeah. So what's everyone's impression of that?
I would just encourage you to be authentic. Like, this is not time for like racism porn, like this, put it out there, even that if that's what people are looking for. But I want you to be authentic, because I want you to know when you're applying to a program, if they don't like you talking about this, or if they don't want to hear it, that's not the program for you. So it's better for you to get it out there right now. They don't want to hear you talk about like anything that you've seen that was marginalized or systemic racism or anything. If that's what drives you and that's your passion, and they don't want to see it in your personal statement, perfect. Because that's not the program for you. And that's going to be a long, torturous journey for you that can be even more toxic or even more stressful. So if that's what your passion is and that's what you believe in, put that in your personal statement, because then when someone who's a program director who's not one of us, but who is like, oh, this is a problem, good, because you want that to be off your list. You don't want to accidentally match there from jump. So let them, so if that's something that you do care about, make sure that you put it there. And that doesn't have to be the whole personal statements, but it should be like, I care about this population because I've witnessed something like this and I don't want it to continue. And it matters to me because of this. And I think that it should be attacked and addressed in this way. So you don't have to go through like, well, my family was traumatized in this way and this and but if it is something that's important to you, it should be there. It's more beneficial to you, trust me, on the front end.
Yeah, I agree with everything Dr. Hairston is saying. I would say that like make sure it has a purpose, right? You're not just saying things just to say things. Like, what is the purpose of what you're trying to say and what you're trying to highlight, and make sure that that comes across. And also keep in mind that whatever you write, it's fair game for people to ask you about. So.
Yeah, I would agree about the lived. Oops, I'm sorry. I would agree what's been said about, being authentic. I mean, this is the lived experience, and so you definitely want to be transparent. But yes, it is also anything that you write, anything on your application is fair game. So if you put it out there, just be prepared to talk about it. And the worst thing you can do is write something and then someone asks you, oh, so tell me, you highlighted this experience, and you're like, oh, I don't think I remember putting that in my that's not good. So again, this put it out there. I would say with your personal statements too, but whatever you write about, try to keep them to a page, if possible. Again, remember that we are reading, especially the program directors, they're reading more applications than I am as someone just on the admissions committee. So try to keep it to a page. You don't need a 2-3 page personal statement. That's too long. So.
That's a great point, Frank. I actually stopped reading at a page, so if you write more. I agree.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So the next question from the chat. So we discussed the signaling. The next question is about reaching out to programs. So any guidance regarding timeline about when to reach out to top programs we may be interested in between now and the beginning of October, approximately?
So I guess I've already said that if you're really serious about coming to Penn, and since there are 100 spots, that it's important to let us know that soon in terms of before we make our our interview list. And we will likely have our first interview day. In fact, I know we will, because we met today to look at what our interview lists are. Interview dates are rather, is October 21st. And so I think we are able to start looking at your applications like September 28th. So if you're really interested in coming to Penn, I would recommend letting, for me, emailing me and letting me know that before the middle of October would be quite helpful, because that's going to be the time that we're going to make the list. Nobody, after the interview, nobody wants, to be a pest, but I would not be silent about your interest in a program. I mean, it's just human nature that if you're interested and you contact us and you update us, or you say, oh, by the way, I was in town visiting my friend or my, brother, or whatever. It's good to hear that, only because it lets us know that you have sort of ready support in Philadelphia, and so, I wouldn't contact people multiple times, but, and we can't ask you to do that, so, but if you're so inclined, it's good to know, probably a couple of times before we put it in the, you put it in the rank list.
Yeah, I would say it's never too early to just start letting programs know if you're interested. Psychiatry has only gotten more competitive, right? So over the years, and so whatever you can to get your foot in the door, like let them know, So if they're, you can ask them, is there any activities, anything coming up that you'd be interested in knowing about it. But yeah, put yourself out there and just let them know, right? Like, what's the worst they can say? You lose nothing and you can gain something great.
Okay, thank you. Next question, does your program require DO students to take the USMLE exam?
You see some nods, some head shakes. So
Okay.
it's mixed answer, it sounds like.
No for Howard.
Yes, for Penn.
No for OU.
No for OSU.
I want to say yes for Greer.
Good, I'm not out there by myself.
Okay, next question. So the next question says, I was curious to know if there is a step 2 cutoff for your program. Lots of head shakes.
It looks like in the same direction.
No, I mean, if it's there on rank day, then you're fine. If it's not, you're not. So
I think, Dr. Hairston, I think you're talking about like, when does the step 2 score need to be in versus like how did you do on this your score, right?
oh, okay. Sorry. Yes, I was talking about when it needs to be in, which is.
My answer is still no.
But it's still no.
But anyway, my answer is still no.
Yeah.
So
If I can just bring something up, because we're talking about step 2 cutoff. We don't have a cutoff in our program, but for anyone that might have this a low score, I think your personal statement is an area where you can kind of like highlight what that struggle was and like how you overcame it, or what you implemented in place, right? So it's not, life is full of challenges, right? Like, I don't know, if you don't have challenges, I'm really interested in exploring your life. But, so it's not about that. It's about like what has transpired and what have you done as a result of that. And I think your personal statement becomes an area where you can really explore that and expand upon that for the program.
And I see Frank wants to take back the DO requirement. So you are alone.
Left me on the limb there.
You are alone. And I just see a question here that's asked a couple different ways. So if we can address this, because I know we're running short on time, and I told our panelists that they would be done in an hour. But there's a question I see a couple of times about red flags. So for my program and for me, for someone who had to take step 1 more than once, it's not a red flag to have to repeat an exam. It's more that you now have passed it. Now, red flags for me are things like that say you were caught cheating or lying or said something incorrect about a patient or violated someone's rights or anything like that. So that's what red flags are for me, truly, not exam things, not even like having to repeat a rotation or anything like that, as long as your MSP reflects that you completed it successfully. Now, if you, and I've seen all types of things, like somebody stole things, like somebody lied, and now that is going to be a red flag for me, but not an exam score or not having to retake an exam.
So thank you for those replies. I think Dr. Hairston summed up the red flag question well. So we can go to Victoria. If you want to ask your question, feel free to unmute.
Okay, thanks. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm an MD PhD at U Chicago, and I was wondering a little bit about your guys' perspective on your institutions. So I'm interested personally, I don't know about other people, in academic medicine and research careers. So I'm thinking about research pathways, but part of what I'm thinking about as someone who's interested in academic medicine is not only how is the residency experience going to be, but what is the culture of the institution that I might be joining, because it might be somewhere that I might end up staying, which tends to be more likely for academic folks. And so I wanted to know your guys' perspective on your institutions and what you feel about the mentorship opportunities and the environment for young faculty, for people who are trying to stay. Is it an institution you could recommend? And is there anything that you think people like me who are interested in academic medicine should be thinking about as we're choosing between institutions and, you know, applying, because I don't get to make all the choice match lists.
Victoria, that's a really great question. If you look at our website, we have a R25 research funded research track training grant. And there you will actually find the APD, who's the director of research, Matt Kaiser. And he is always happy to have people reach out to him directly about that, as you know, and certainly I am as well. Every research track resident has basically an individualized plan that Matt and the other person who really works very diligently with our research track residents. And, you know, so there's, you know, phenomenal mentorship. We consider it what we want to do is have people, you know, do a postdoc and, you know, and remain as faculty. And we've done a, you know, quite a good job of that. In fact, Matt Kaiser himself used to be my medical student and, you know, trained here and then joined the faculty. So I would recommend, he's basically Kaiser at penmedicine.upenn.edu, but it's on our website. So yes, there's, you know, an expert in everything, and we're definitely welcoming of people coming and being interested in what, you know, we offer, even if it's, you know, a little to the side. We've got great mentors and would love to have our residents stay on as faculty, either clinically or in research.
I agree that was a great question, Victoria, that you're very forward thinking, because everyone doesn't think that. Yes, you can come be faculty at Howard. There might be a new program director space by the time you finish, who knows? But I would say that it is important to really observe and see if this is a place that you think you might be. It might not even be residency, it might be fellowship. Like when I finished my CL fellowship, then I became faculty there, but Howard had more opportunities for young faculty. That's why I was the youngest, and I don't know if I am anymore, but I was the youngest program director back in 2019, because when I became program director, because they have that that mentorship and that faith, and gave me this leadership role that I did want to have ultimately, but it just came a little bit earlier than I was expecting. So that, yeah, just pay attention to the opportunities that are given. Some programs are more like, oh yes, you need to wait 7 years before you can have some type of leadership role, or before they'll let you be clerkship director or something like that. So try to pay attention, and then actually ask the faculty members, like, what are when you're on your interview, like, what are the opportunities for trainees to become faculty, and is there support? So that's a very good question that you are already thinking of, and I want the other students to think of as well.
Yeah, I would echo what's been said. I've been out of residency now 8 years, so I guess I'm still an early career. But you know, my the system that I'm affiliated with in our department, our chair has been very supportive of young faculty like myself wanting to pave their way in academic medicine. You know, she encouraged me to go up for promotion for associate professor, which happy to say that happened last August. So you know, thank you. It's so you got to have that mentorship and sponsorship. I think that is important, and you want to make sure that things are a good fit. Before I was outpatient. I did inpatient psychiatry for a while, and I was medical director for our hospital for 4 years. So you definitely want to get those opportunities. And if you want to be in academic medicine, I was just at a conference this past week. I think there are only 12,000 academic psychiatrists in the country. So if you think about it, compared to the total number of psychiatrists, that's not that many. So there's definitely opportunities to flourish in what you want to do. And there are people who are coming out of fresh out of residency that are getting leadership positions. So I agree. Don't let someone tell you like, oh, I think you're too young. That's not, if somebody believes in you and they want to see you flourish and get, looking at your trajectory, they'll make it happen, and they'll partner with you to make sure that you get where you want to be. And South Carolina is a good place to do that too, this, by the way. So if you want to thrive in that environment.
I mean, I would say that our place is really good too, because we're also very small. And so we're a very tight knit institution, and like people just move up quickly. I would say that our academic environment is very different from many academic environments that I hear about across the country, where it's very cutthroat and very like grant and research driven. It's like we do a lot of like scholarly activities here, but it's not all like bench research or clinical research or things like that. It's more like papers and workshops and things of that nature. And I mean, I started out as APD right after graduating, and then was PD within 5 years. And, like it's just, so I think it can be very different in different environments. So I just throw that out.
Okay, thank you for these wonderful answers. I think in these last few moments that we have, if anyone is willing and able to, can anyone share a few words on just staying motivated and remaining encouraged in this journey through medicine? If anyone has anything to share.
Don't give up. Medicine is an arduous journey, but it's also a privilege and a blessing. I think psychiatry is the best field in medicine. Okay. Yeah, don't give up. You're going to go through your hardships. Residency is not a walk in the park by any means, but making sure you surround yourself with a support system, that is key. Because you're going to go through things in residency, and you want to make sure you got your team that you're around. A program director having a good program director is everything, in my opinion. You definitely want somebody that you can have that has an open door policy, that you can go in and be your true self. If that can't happen, then I think then the program does a disservice to you. But yeah, just keep pursuing your dreams, and you got a great group of panelists that are here to support you as you take those next steps.
Yeah, I echo what is being said. I think that academic excellence is one thing, but having a warm, supportive environment and a cohesive program really makes all the difference. And you absolutely want to have a program director that has your back. It's like, okay, we're out in the street, I'm with you. And when we get home, maybe we need to talk about this, but you absolutely want to have a program director that has your back. And it is so much fun to be a psychiatrist. I totally agree. I mean, like every single time I get to talk to another patient, it's just another opportunity to make a positive impact. So I think that keeps the motivation. Sorry, Danielle.
I was just going to add, stay connected to your why, right? And so why are you in this? Why were you interested in psychiatry? Because again, we talked about like the challenges and the up and downs that goes through life and goes through residency, staying connected to the people that that ground you, and also to your why. I think it's going to be important.
I would add, I'll let Dr. Hairston go last so she can like round us out probably. But it's okay to ask for help. And I think that it is way underappreciated how many residents and faculty go through struggles and go through their own health, including mental health, struggles, and asking for help and being open, I think will serve you best in the long run, instead of trying to push through or pretend that everything is okay. And it is okay to self-care and take the time that you need to stay resourced.
Yes, I agree with all of the things. And also, yeah, residency is not like, it's going to be work. It's going to be like being on call. It's going to be having to see patients all the time, especially if you're on consults with me. Like, do I have to go see? Yeah, you gotta go see the patients. But just know that one of the best things about residency sometimes is that it's gonna end. Like, there's gonna be an end, and you're gonna have built a network. You're gonna have some co-residents that hopefully some of them you like in the future that you can have on the group chat. But just know that it does end, and with psychiatry, you can do it, all the things. Like, if you don't know anything about what I do and the @Black Psychiatry platform, I do anything. Like, you will see me on TV, you'll see me on podcasts, I do consulting for, like, I've done consulting for Google, for YouTube, all the things that I do, I can't even remember right now. But yeah, TV, documentaries. I don't see surgeons out here doing all the things. So I know that there's the flexibility. I know that there are all types of opportunities. One of my friends just left academics. Now she does investment properties, but does tele on the side and gets paid even more. There are some people who do locums and cover the ED. So just know that there are things that you can do. Like, residency is residency, you'll get through that. And then there's so much more in the world that you can do. So try to have that end of the tunnel, like on your deep, dark day, on your last hour of that call, like, why am I doing that? Like, remember that there is going to be something, and you are helping people. So there is going to be a time when you do control your schedule, when you don't have to come in at 7 a.m. because I don't come to work at 7 a.m. not any day. Just know that, and I never will. But just know that there is going to be another answer. I would say that there is going to be what you want. It's coming. You just gotta. I tell my residents now, I finished residency. That's why I come in after y'all. You did not. So when you do, there's levels to this. So just remember that there are levels to this, and that there will be a good level for you. It's coming, and mentorship is so important. So when I came in as an intern, my chair was my mentor. He's like, oh, I already signed you up. You're doing this presentation with me. You're going to this conference. I already made sure they booked your flight. And I'm like, oh, okay. So my students, I'm like.
Was that Lawson?
That was Lawson, yeah. And my students, I'm like, oh, y'all are coming with me to APA. Like, I'm gonna figure out a way to get it done. So mentorship is very important. If there is not another URM mentor in your program or in your life, then join the APA, join the Black Psychiatry of America, follow @Black Psychiatry so you can find your person, you can find your space and that support, because you will need that. With that, we are 12 minutes over what I told my lovely panelists that they would have to do. Now, I am going to put my email in chat. There's going to be a disclaimer to me putting my email in chat. I take forever to answer emails. So don't say, oh, Dr. Hairston, I emailed you yesterday. I know.
They can't just scroll back up to be able to see the email I put in there?
If they join late, they can't. But if
they cannot. Okay, so I should, okay, all right, gotcha.
So
okay, thank you.
Know that don't talk about me, okay? It takes me a long time to answer emails because I do a lot of things. I just told y'all I do a lot of things, right? So your email came up and so did Google's. So just know that I'm gonna answer all of them, but it's gonna take some time. All right.
Much fun. Can I say just one quick thing? Yeah. Ashley, I'm from Arkansas, so I'm just loving the fact that you're a neighboring state, even though I'm like talking about Philadelphia stuff.
We interview lots of students from Arkansas each year, so.
Cool. That's great. We got a student from Kansas this past year. Anyway, that's sort of a Midwest South connection, so I had to make it.
Dr. Igboeli.
Yeah, I wanted to add that kind of going off what Dr. Hairston was saying, if you send an email and you don't hear back, they're not intentionally ignoring you. You're one of like hundreds of emails that we get every single day. And so don't hesitate to like send another email and just like, hey, I just wanted to check in. I know for myself, I don't find that annoying. It's actually really helpful because I probably saw your first email and meant to email you back, but then in the busyness of things, I forgot. So when you send me another one, it reminds me, it serves as a reminder. So don't take it personal if you don't hear back, just reach out again.
Agreed. So with that, I have to say thank you for all for joining our panelists, the students. Shout out to my two clutch student moderators, Kim and Jonathan, who just came through for me this morning. So thank you for being here. Let me remind you about following Tour for Diversity. There are some great panels coming up. They are not just the specialty ones, but about ERAS, about personal statements. So follow them there. Of course, SNMA, LMSA. Follow me and my group on @Black Psychiatry. Join the Black Psychiatrists of America. If you are not sure what to do next, make sure if you're following and going with Tour for Diversity, there are mock interviews coming. So make sure that you participate in those mock interviews and sign up. I won't be doing the mock interviews this year because I don't want you to know all my questions, but make sure that you sign up and that you follow Tour for Diversity. I think I have to send them the names of people who have registered today, so they don't send it out to you if you aren't already following, but go to the Tour for Diversity website so that you can sign up or DM them. They're good, not me, but they're good with responding to DMs on Instagram for like links and sign up. So make sure that you do that. So I want to thank you, all the panelists, all the docs here, especially Dr. Frank Clark for helping me to facilitate the panel. I think I've been out of residency for like 6 years. That's interesting. Okay, well, all right, so thank you all. I think that we will also provide a link to everyone who registered so you can watch this again later. But the chat sometimes saving it, sometimes doesn't. So good luck. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Hairston. Great job, Honorary. Thanks, Dr. Walker.
Great job, everyone. Thanks, Kim and Jonathan. I'll see y'all.
Thanks, everyone. Good night. Tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Bye.